All right, so now let's discuss the four default methods. How does it look like? So when you have a class A, okay, um, you have a public method. Suppose you did not define anything here, so no definitions exist. And the private section, you have int, let's say m, some variable, let's say m int star, let's say m pointer to int, and you have, let's say, some other class, let's say b. So you, before that, you have a defined class b somewhere, let's say. Okay, so you have mb. So in this convention, in this class, I will also introduce some convention that you can stick to for better programming. So here m prefix is just indicating that it's a member variable. Okay, and when you are passing an argument through a function, try to use a prefix for argument. So when you have this kind of structure, your code will naturally look better. Okay, so here, this is the data member of type int, this is the data member of type pointer to int, and this is the data member of type class b, correct? Then what do we do from here? So in the corresponding C++ file, you don't have anything to define because you have nothing here. So there is nothing here in this section. But as we mentioned, that there will be some default constructors generated, there will be default copy constructor generated, the default destructor would be generated, and the default assignment operator would be generated. So the question is that what would that default look like? So the default, so constructor typically looks like this. You take the class name, right? So this is the scoping operator corresponding to the class, and you use the same class name, and that function is essentially the destructor. So when you are doing this, this has the effect of invoking automatically the default constructor for MB here. And here, clearly MB would be initialized through its constructor, right? What happens to mint? There is no initialization. No initialization for mint. So because this is just a normal variable. And likewise, no initialization for m pointer to int. So the only responsibility that this default constructor takes, that is automatically generated by the compiler, is to call this constructor corresponding to the object that you have in the member variable section. But the rest remains uninitialized and unallocated. Okay, so that's the constructor. So this is the default constructor. What about the default destructor? So default destructor would look like, so typically, let's write down with scoping operator. So typically it has this tilde operator before, and then the same class name. So the destructor looks like this. And a very important thing to note that both for constructor and destructor, you can see there is no return value. There is no such function we write either in C or in C++ that does not return anything, right? But these two are very special functions which does not have any return value. So what is this going to do? Is it going to do anything? It's going to do only one thing. It's going to call the default destructor corresponding to this, again, the class, the object of this class that we have. So it's going to call mb dot, it's going to invoke the destructor for this guy. That's the responsibility it will take. Okay. So clearly, when you have this some variable here, initialization is clearly your responsibility whenever there is a pointer or just a non-pointer variable. But when you have a class sort of variable, there will be certain things that will be taken care of. So that's the point.